You've been making so much progress over the months, Shaman. I am really very, very struck by all that.
Thanks. Thanks for all of your help.
Well, you've been doing you're welcome. You're the one doing the real work, though. I'm really impressed. Now, you're saying, though, that despite all the progress you make, you still sometimes have this negative sense about the next experience that you're going to have, the next experiment that you're going to have. And in my experience, when people are socially anxious, it's not only feelings they're having, but it's images and impressions that we have, images and impressions about ourselves and about how other people react to us. Is
Yeah.
that something that you've noticed for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I Now that you mention it, I have a lot of images.
Well, let's start with eliciting what those are. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes
Okay.
and imagine that you're about to do something that you really want to do, but that makes you socially anxious at this point, despite all the progress that we've made. Describe to me what it is that you're choosing to do.
Now,
Yes.
I'm choosing to volunteer um, to lead a presentation and um, and to do a really good job at it
Okay.
at work.
Okay, very good. Now imagine you're leading this presentation at work and describe to me in present tense, as though it's happening right now, your image or impression about how you're coming across, as well as how others are reacting to you.
Um, I'm coming across as a little nervous. I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. Um, and I'm a little sweaty, and people are looking concerned. Um, but I'm able to get through it.
And what do you imagine they're thinking when they're looking a little bit concerned?
Um, that I don't know what I'm talking about. Um, that I'm that I look really nervous or there's something wrong with me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Open your eyes, please. Now, you described the images that you have of yourself, how you're coming across, and how others are reacting to you in one specific situation, but it sounds familiar to me. Is this the kind of image, impression you have of yourself in other situations in which you're socially anxious as well?
Yeah, in almost any situation where I have to talk in front of people, or I'm meeting new people, or I have to share information.
And also meeting new people socially, it applies to those situations as well?
Definitely meeting new people.
Okay.
There. Yeah.
Now that's typical. In social anxiety, we often carry around images of how we come across negatively to others, our fear of coming across that way anyway, and also that others are reacting to us badly in how we come across. And the reason we carry these images around typically is because of some experiences we had growing up, some really painful, maybe even traumatic experiences we had growing up in which these things actually occurred, or at least they seem to have occurred. And I'm wondering if you can remember what the first or one of the first incidents in your life that you can recall now in which you felt this way and felt you came across this way and felt that others were reacting to you in this way?
Um, guess that it was in junior high school, maybe. I remember this one time I had a group presentation and I was so nervous.
Okay.
And
Well,
yeah.
let's do this in imagery as though it's happening now. If you could close your eyes, please. And first imagine that you're in the class as best as you recall it. Just in your mind's eye, look around and see the class and the people and where you are and the teacher and all of that. And describe to me in present tense, as though it's happening now, what you experience.
Um, I'm standing in front of the classroom and there are three other students behind me, next to me, and the teacher is over to the side. And all of the other kids are sitting at their desks looking at me. Um, and I'm the one who's doing the presentation. I'm the one who's speaking. So I start to talk, but I forget what I'm supposed to be talking about. And I start to feel really hot. And one of the kids points at me and says that I'm sweating. Look, she's sweating. And I hear another kid laugh. And then I kind of look around for help from my other group members, and nobody helps me. So I start trying to talk, but I'm stumbling over my words and I hear people laughing. Um, and one of the group members tells me to look at my cards. Um, so I start trying to read the cards, but I'm still stumbling over my words. And another kid mentions that I'm stumbling over my words, and I dropped the cards and I ran out of the classroom.
Oh, wow. That sounds really painful. Open your eyes, please. How are you feeling?
Really bad,
Yeah,
really embarrassed.
yeah. So those feelings come right back, even though this is something that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
And notice how this really painful, this traumatic experience you had way back then is very much like the images you carry with you now when you're socially anxious. In fact, that experience and maybe other experiences like that, I would hypothesize created this image that you carry around with you. Now let's discuss some ways that things are different now than they were back then, based on all the progress you've made in working in therapy, as a way of breaking the link between this painful, traumatic experience from the past and your present day image. We want to break that link so that you could weaken that image and change that image to a more confident you. So let's discuss ways that things are different now versus then. So first of all, how old were you then again?
It's 13,
And how old are you now?
45.
Okay. And the kids in class then were also your same age. And what's the age range of people you relate to now?
Mostly 30s, 40s, 50s.
Not a lot of 13-year-olds or,
No.
okay. And based on all the experiments that you've done as homework in our work together, and also some of the experiments you've done in session, some of which had video recording, based on all those many, many experiments and all the evidence you've gathered, how do you come across differently now than you came across during that painful incident at 13?
Um, well, I I know from watching videos that I don't appear as nervous as maybe I think I do, that I'm not I don't seem as hot or as sweaty as I I think I do, or I don't stumble over my words as much as I worry that I am. That I'm able to, if I do kind of get lost, bring myself back to the conversation with more ease.
Sure.
Um,
Very good. And how about the other part of the image? Based on all the evidence you've gathered through homework experiments and our experiments in session, how are people reacting to you now versus then?
well, people aren't usually as mean as 13-year-old girls and boys in current situations. And people seem to be interested in what I'm saying, and I'm able to have good conversations um, with people in general. And sometimes if I do have like a conversation that feels a little awkward, um, it's maybe not about me, it's about them, or it doesn't I don't take it as personally anymore. Um, and I'm often able to have good connections with people and have back and forth conversations, and maybe even sometimes make them laugh.
Wow, things really are different in how you come across and how others react to you now versus then. Very different. So I'm going to suggest an idea for homework over the coming weeks that might help strengthen this sense that things really are different now versus then. And that's when you do your homework experiments in the coming week, as well as any other time that you might experience social anxiety, that when you notice that you're anxious or doing something challenging, as you're paying attention mindfully, as you're getting engrossed in the conversation, the activity, the people in the moment, pay special attention to the way things are different now versus back when you were 13, experiencing that very painful episode you described. Notice the differences right then that you're seeing in the way that you're coming across and in the way that people are responding to you. And afterwards, when the situation is over with, later that day, write those differences down. So maybe it was a staff meeting, or maybe it was a social meetup, or maybe it was an unexpected conversation with somebody in the hallway. Write down the ways you notice that things are different now during that situation versus the way they were for you back when you were 13. How does that sound as a homework idea?
Okay, that sounds easy to do.
Good. And over time, what I'm hoping that will do is to break the link between that painful, traumatic experience that you described to us that created this negative image and the images you have of yourself now, so that you can see how different things are for you now versus then.
Okay.